There was a pair of earrings on the bathroom counter that didn't belong to her. That's how I knew. Not a thong on the floor. Not a stray text. Not a lipstick smudge. Just a pair of small, gold hoop earrings. Cheap ones you'd get from a gas station spinner rack. And the way she looked at them like they were radioactive. She froze when she saw them. I watched from the hallway. She reached toward them, then stopped, like touching them might burn her fingerprints off. Here's the thing. I planted them. Not because I suspected something. Because I knew. You don't hide what isn't happening. And she had been hiding everything. Her phone face down. Her sudden obsession with jogging at night, when she never ran a mile in her life. The laugh that didn't belong to her when she texted whoever it was she was texting. Even her silence had an accent now. So I tested her. I set the trap. Earrings from a gas station. A brand she wouldn't wear even in a coma. She looked at them like they were a ghost. Then, slowly, she turned her head toward the mirror. Not toward me, toward the mirror, and said, almost whispering, "No, no, no. Not what is this? Not whose are these? Just panic." Then she did something that should have won her an Oscar. She opened the cabinet under the sink, took out a pack of makeup wipes, and calmly started wiping down the counter like she was cleaning up a murder scene. I stepped into the doorway. She flinched but didn't turn. "You forget to mention someone came over last night?" I asked. She blinked, looked up into the mirror, not at me, at my reflection. "They're mine," she said. I just smiled. "No, they're not." She spun around, eyes wide. Not scared, just calculating. You could hear the gears grinding. And then, the lie. "Okay, fine. Mel was here. She crashed after the party. You were asleep." Mel, the default scapegoat. Mel, who lives 40 minutes away and hates driving at night. Mel, who has a boyfriend and a baby and doesn't drink. Mel, who was texting me at 2 a.m. Memes about cheese boards. I didn't say a word. I just picked up the earrings with a tissue, like a cop at a crime scene, and dropped them into a Ziploc bag. Then I went into the guest room and locked the door. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the dark, listening to her breathing shift from fake crying to fake snoring. She thought the worst part was the earrings. She didn't know I hadn't even started yet. The day after the earring incident, she pretended nothing happened. She made coffee like always, 2 sugars, no milk, that annoying ceramic mug that says Mondays are a crime. She even played her usual podcast in the kitchen. True crime. The irony was so thick it could suffocate you. I watched her from the hallway, arms crossed, dead silent. She didn't look up once. She was performing for an invisible audience. The routine, the humming, the careful clinking of the spoon in the mug, it wasn't for me. It was for her. Like if she stayed inside the play long enough, maybe the curtains wouldn't fall. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because that silence? It was louder than any fight we'd ever had. She finally broke around 2 p.m. I was sitting in the garage on a folding chair like some kind of broken uncle, staring at the washing machine like it was going to confess something. The door opened behind me, slowly, like she thought I might explode. Or vanish. I didn't turn around. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded but didn't move. She sat on the edge of the steps behind me, knees together, elbows on thighs like a kid in trouble. She took a deep breath, and I could already tell the words were fake. Practiced. Assembled like a furniture set with missing screws. "Look," she began. "I haven't been completely honest. I've been going through something. I didn't want to drag you into it until I had a handle on it." That's when I did turn to look at her. "You cheated," I said flatly. No emotion. Just facts. She blinked. "No. Don't. Camille. Don't insult me." She looked down at her hands like they were strangers. Her voice dropped, softer now. "I didn't sleep with him." That wasn't a denial. That was a negotiation. She tried again, leaning forward like proximity would clean the lie. "I was drunk. Things got blurry. I stayed the night, but nothing happened. I swear." I stood up, slowly, walked over to the workbench and pulled open the drawer with the receipts, warranties, old charger cables. And then I took out her second phone. Not her main one. The old iPhone 11 I found duct-taped under the floorboard in her closet the week before. The one she lost last year. Her breath caught in her throat. "You left your DoorDash notifications on," I said quietly. It pinged at 3:17 a.m. "Your order from Carmine's has arrived. To an address in Grandview." She swallowed. Hard. I held up the phone and tapped the screen. "Guess whose name was on the order?" She didn't answer. "Elijah," I said. Not Eli. Not his full name. The one on his LinkedIn, on his work email, on the party invite she tried to delete from the calendar. Elijah Kent. The man who ruined my life with a six-pack and a playlist. Camille broke then. Her face crumpled in slow motion like a building folding in on itself. She tried to stand, to speak, to grab for something. Me, the phone, reality, but I stepped back. The moment stretched. A terrible, elastic silence. Then, the only words I would hear from her for the rest of the day. I didn't mean for this to happen. But that was the thing. She didn't mean for this to happen. She meant for it to stay hidden. She thought the worst part was that I found out. But the worst part was that I already knew everything, and she still tried to lie. 2 days passed, and neither of us mentioned the name Elijah. Not once. She walked around like the house was made of thin ice, and I was stomping through it barefoot. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't even move to the guest room again. I wanted her to sit in it. To feel the air change, every second, every breath, every little silence I let hang in the room. I didn't need to punish her. Her guilt was already doing the heavy lifting. I just had to make space for it. That Monday morning, she asked if I wanted eggs. I told her I wasn't hungry. She said okay, then made them anyway. Ate alone at the counter. Watching her eat was like watching someone rehearse being a human. Bite. Chew. Swallow. Sip water. Look up. Smile faintly. Like she was trying to convince a camera crew she was still the wife she used to be. But it was all hollow. Camille had become a hologram in her own skin. I waited until she left for work to go into her car. She'd been driving my old Honda lately, said she preferred the way it handled. I told her to take it, but I kept the spare key. When she was gone, I opened the glove box and found what I expected: sunglasses, an emergency charger, a random hair tie that wasn't hers, and a stack of printed invoices from her office. Event budgets, schedules, catering orders. I flipped through casually until I reached a printed itinerary, a detailed run of show for a team offsite she said had been canceled a month ago. It hadn't been canceled. According to the paper, it had been rescheduled, same place, different date. A boutique hotel near the Scioto River. And under overnight guest confirmations, her name appeared twice. Once for the main booking, once for the +1. No name attached to the second listing. I stared at that paper for a long time. My hands weren't even shaking. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel betrayal anymore. I felt scientific. Like I was cataloging evidence. Documenting the death of something no one else could see. Our marriage was a crime scene with no corpse, but I could still smell the rot. That night, when she got home, she told me she had a headache. Said work was chaotic. I nodded and offered to heat up some leftovers. She declined. Took a shower. Went to bed early. But I didn't. I went to my computer. I logged into her work portal using a password I found once in a saved Chrome profile she forgot to wipe. And I looked up the vendor contact listed on that offsite itinerary. I emailed the hotel, pretending to be from her company's finance department. Said I needed to verify the room charges for compliance reasons. They responded within an hour, friendly and efficient. And there it was. 2 guests. 1 suite. A note in the requests field. Please ensure privacy. No contact with company HQ unless urgent. Romantic package confirmed. Romantic package. She had planned a secret getaway with him using her company's money and wrapped it in a corporate excuse like a poisoned chocolate. It was almost impressive. I printed that email, folded it neatly, placed it in her sock drawer. Not for confrontation, just so she'd know that I knew. That the mask was off. That the real game had begun. Because I wasn't going to scream. Or throw her out. Or cry in the bathroom floor like she probably imagined. No, I was going to dismantle her carefully built world, one lie at a time. The email sat in her sock drawer for 4 days. For full days. She never mentioned it. Never asked about it. Never brought it up like some guilty confession she'd been working up the courage to make. That told me everything. Camille wasn't the kind of person who feared being caught. She feared being cornered. And that email, that simple, unassuming piece of folded paper, was her corner. But she pretended it didn't exist. She folded laundry on top of it. I watched her do it. She looked straight into that drawer, stared at it like it might bite her, then buried it under a sweatshirt like she was hiding a weapon from herself. I didn't confront her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of my voice. Instead, I started digging. Not through her things. Through mine. Through the parts of my life I had ignored while playing house with a stranger. I went through my old saved messages, photos, bank statements, even her social media comments from 2 years ago. I realized something that shook me more than anything else. Camille had been slowly phasing me out long before Elijah ever showed up. The cheating wasn't a sudden betrayal. It was a symptom, a final stage. She had been rehearsing the exit for months, maybe longer. And I had been too stupid, too trusting, too in love to notice. On Saturday, I visited my brother Graham, someone Camille always hated. She said he was a walking midlife crisis with a bad credit score, but the truth was, he saw through her from day one. Graham offered me a beer. I said yes. I never say yes. We sat on his back porch, and for the first time, I told someone the full story. The earrings, the second phone, the fake business trip, the hotel, the printed email. He didn't look surprised. He just nodded slowly and said, "So what's the play?" And that was the first time I realized. I did have a play. Not a plan for revenge. Not a scheme, but a decision. A moment I had been circling for weeks without admitting it to myself. I want her to burn her own house down, I said. I want her to think she still has control. And then I want to step out of the way while everything she built turns to ash. Graham smiled in that way older brothers do when they've been waiting for you to catch up. "So you're not going to leave?" "No," I said. "Not yet." That night, I came home late. Camille was in bed, pretending to sleep. I could always tell the difference. Her breathing had a rhythm when she was really out. This time, it was forced, like a bad actor trying to stay still. I went into the bathroom, opened the mirror cabinet, and made sure the second toothbrush, the one she thought I hadn't noticed was gone, was back in place. I had put it there to see if she'd take the bait. She hadn't. She'd probably thrown it away. The smallest details always reveal the biggest truths. Sunday morning, she made pancakes. First time in over a year. From scratch. I watched her move around the kitchen like she was trying to undo something. Like feeding me might rebuild the pieces of trust she didn't realize were irreparably shattered. I ate 2 bites, told her they were good. They weren't. I asked her what her week looked like. She listed off meetings, a team dinner, a client strategy night on Thursday. I nodded along, pretending to take mental notes, when really I was thinking about how to time the next move. Because I had already contacted someone. Elijah's girlfriend. Her name was Kora. I found her through an old tag in Camille's Instagram comments. She was private, but her profile picture was a photo of her and Elijah at a vineyard, arm in arm, smiling like the world had never hurt them. I sent her a message. Not aggressive, just informative. Polite. With screenshots, timestamps, the hotel invoice, the Uber receipts, and the most painful thing of all, a forwarded calendar invite Camille had accidentally sent to her own work email. The subject line? Last little getaway blue heart. I didn't expect a response right away, but when I opened my phone later that night, I saw the 3 dots appear, and then disappear, then appear again, then nothing. Not yet. That told me she was reading it. Processing. Doing the same emotional math I had done weeks earlier. Watching her own life fracture, quietly, through a screen. The dominoes weren't falling. Not yet, but they were starting to tilt. And Camille? She was sitting in the living room, watching some romantic drama on Netflix, completely unaware that her entire reality had just been handed to a stranger on the other side of a message request. The silence between us was perfect, because it wasn't just awkward anymore. It was pregnant. Something was coming, and it was going to be loud. Kora finally replied 2 days later, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure she ever would. Her profile went dark for a while. No new stories, no likes on Camille's posts, no status updates. I started to think maybe she'd confronted Elijah already and decided to sweep it all under the rug, the way people do when they're too scared to light a match. But when her message finally came in, it wasn't angry. It wasn't even surprised. It was one word. A question. Why? I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because it was the wrong question. Or maybe the right one, but too late. I responded, keeping it clean, focused. I told her I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone. I wasn't looking for drama. I just figured she deserved to know. I said I'd stay out of it if she wanted. That I wasn't asking her to do anything. That was true. I wasn't. Her next message came 10 minutes later, and it shook me. You think I didn't know? I blinked. Reread it. Then again. She continued. This has been going on for over a year. I found her name in his phone 6 months ago under Ben HR. Cute, right? I confronted him. He said it was nothing. Then I found a necklace in his car that wasn't mine. Still had the price tag. He said he was holding it for his sister. I didn't even argue. I just stopped caring. That stopped me cold. Kora wasn't broken. She was hollowed out. She'd already lived through the explosion. I was just catching the shrapnel now. I asked her why she stayed. She didn't answer right away. Then finally, because if I left, he'd run straight to her. And she'd win. It was the most honest thing I'd read in weeks. And the saddest. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of Camille. She'd gone to yoga and came back smelling like cologne I didn't own, but because of Kora. I couldn't stop thinking about how many other people were orbiting our collapse, carrying their own silent detonations. Elijah didn't just wreck one life. He created a ripple effect of rot. Camille wasn't just cheating. She was infecting, and I was tired of waiting. The next morning, I went to the office printer at my job, the one no one ever checks, and printed out every screenshot, every invoice, every scrap of digital rot I'd collected. Not for her. For me. I needed to see the monster in full, laid out on paper, no longer hiding behind passwords and logins. I organized it all into a simple manila folder. Titled the tab, Truth. Nothing fancy. Nothing dramatic. Just truth. I left the folder in her car, right on the driver's seat. Then I locked the door and put the keys back on her hook, like nothing happened. That day, she texted me twice. Once to ask what I wanted for dinner. Once to say she might be late because of traffic. She didn't mention the folder. Didn't call. Didn't even send a question mark. But I knew she saw it. I knew she read it. The silence was different now. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't defensive. It was paralysis. When she came home, she moved like her spine had been removed. She walked past me in the kitchen, eyes forward, like I was a stranger she hoped wouldn't ask for directions. She didn't say a word, just grabbed a bottle of wine and went upstairs. No glass, just the bottle. That told me more than any confession could. Camille had always been the queen of narratives. She could spin anything, an affair, a fight, a missing anniversary, into something that sounded noble or tragic or not her fault. But now there were no words. And that was how I knew the story was finally broken. The next day, she called in sick. First time in years. She stayed in bed until 4 p.m., then sat on the back deck in her robe like a ghost. She didn't speak to me once. I left her there. She had wanted a secret life, and now she had one. But it was filled with the echo of her own consequences. And the best part? I still hadn't raised my voice. Not once. I hadn't thrown anything. Hadn't accused her in some kitchen screaming match. I just let her see it. Let her sit in it. That was the worst punishment. Not rage. Not betrayal. Clarity. And still, the next evening, she did something that truly stunned me. She tried to seduce me. It started like a flicker, barely noticeable. A sudden shift in how she moved around me. A brush of her hand across my back when she passed behind me in the kitchen. Standing closer than she needed to in the hallway. Soft smiles. Sleeves rolled halfway up. Camille was trying to rewind the tape. Like she could seduce her way back into the version of us that existed before I started peeling back her lies. But the thing about pretending to be in love with someone is you forget what it used to feel like when it was real. One night, she sat next to me on the couch, wearing that blue t-shirt I always liked. 3 sizes too big, off one shoulder, just enough to look accidental. She smelled like jasmine shampoo and maybe a little desperation. I didn't look at her. She waited a moment, then placed her hand gently on my thigh. I flinched, just slightly, but enough. She noticed, pulled her hand back like it touched a stove. I didn't say anything. She waited a beat, then leaned in, her voice soft and shaking just a little too much. "You don't touch me anymore," she said. I looked at her then, really looked at her. And for the first time since all of this began, she didn't look smug, or calculated, or defensive. She looked empty, like whatever armor she'd been using to float through the aftermath had finally cracked under its own weight. "Why now?" I asked quietly. She blinked, confused. "This," I said, gesturing between us. "Why touch me now? After everything?" Her voice cracked. "Because I miss you." Wrong answer. I stood up, slow and careful, like I was lifting something fragile. Walked over to the shelf near the TV, pulled out a small box, and handed it to her. She stared at it, then opened it like it might explode. Inside was a necklace. A simple gold chain. Nothing flashy. Just one small charm on it, the letter E. Her breath caught in her throat. "I found this," I said, in the glove box of the Honda, along with a receipt. Bought on March 17th, a week before your team-building retreat. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I continued. Was it supposed to be a gift for him? Or did you wear it when you were with him, and then stash it when you came home to me? Her face turned to stone. That was the thing with Camille. She didn't cry when she lost. She froze. Her defense mechanism was emotional ice. It didn't mean anything, she whispered. Then why hide it? Silence. Why do you still keep his toothbrush in your overnight bag? She looked up sharply, eyes wide now. That landed. That was new. She hadn't known I'd found that. A green and white soft bristle brush, travel size, tucked in the zipper pouch with her makeup. Still slightly wet. Still smelling faintly of mint and a man who wasn't me. Where did you? I wasn't looking for it, I said. I just happened to unzip something and it fell out. You're getting sloppy. That was when she stood up. Not to defend herself. Not to yell or lie. But just to escape the room. Like the walls were closing in and she didn't want to be there when they touched. She started toward the stairs, but before she disappeared, I said her name. Camille. She stopped. I know about the apartment. Her whole body tensed. That was the final blow. She turned her head slightly, only enough for me to see her cheek and the edge of her eye. I was going to tell you, she said. No, I replied. You were going to move in first, and then tell me once I couldn't stop it. More silence. Heavy. This one didn't feel like victory. It felt like post-mortem. The apartment was under her sister's name. A little one-bedroom sublease downtown. I'd tracked the rent payments through our joint account when I noticed a $1,620 withdrawal she couldn't explain. She said it was for client reimbursement, but the deposit pattern was monthly, exact to the cent. And when I drove by the place 2 days ago, I saw the same wine glasses she bought on a girl's trip sitting on the windowsill. She was building a life without me. She just didn't expect me to find the blueprints. That night, I didn't sleep in our bedroom. I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the couch in the dark, holding the necklace. I kept wondering if she ever wore it around him. If he kissed her neck while it was on. If she ever touched it absent-mindedly while laughing at something I said, already miles away in her mind with someone else. I didn't feel jealous. I felt buried. Like I'd been digging through wreckage so long I forgot what sunlight even looked like. But something had shifted. Camille had stopped trying to win me back. She was just trying not to lose everything else. And now, I had leverage. For 3 days, she avoided eye contact like it might ignite her skin. We passed each other like co-workers who had once kissed and now regretted it. She tiptoed around the subject of the apartment, the toothbrush, the necklace, like if she didn't say the words out loud, they couldn't kill her. I let her live in that fragile fiction. I made my coffee in silence. I folded my laundry. I left her favorite shampoo in the shower and watched her flinch when she saw it, like it was a blade left on the sink. But I wasn't done. I was waiting for something. And then, on a Wednesday afternoon, I got it. Kora sent me a voicemail. Not a message. Not a text. A voicemail. She said she didn't trust herself to write it. Said it had to be heard. Her voice was raw, steady but fraying at the edges. She told me that Elijah had finally confessed. Not everything, but enough. He admitted to crossing the line with Camille. Twice, maybe 3 times, but claimed it was emotional more than physical. Classic coward's phrasing. But then Kora said something that made my fingers go cold. There's a recording. From one of the nights they were together. I didn't breathe. She explained how she found it by accident. Elijah had a cheap dash cam he sometimes used when he parked in downtown garages. It synced to his phone through an app. She accessed it out of curiosity, just to see where he'd been. One video was saved automatically from the night Camille said she was staying late at the venue. The video didn't show much. Just Elijah's front seat. Streetlights flickering through the windshield. But the audio was crystal clear. And Camille's voice? It wasn't soft. It wasn't unsure. It was full of laughter, teasing, and something worse, relief. As if being with him was the only time she got to drop the mask. I told Kora not to send it. I didn't need to hear it. I already knew. But she sent it anyway. Said I should be the one to decide what to do with it. I listened to it once. Alone. In my car, parked on a back road near a gas station that had closed a decade ago. Camille was laughing. Talking about a stupid romantic playlist I made her years ago. She called me sweet, but slow. She told Elijah that I still asked her to leave love notes before trips, and that it made her feel like I was dating a high school guidance counselor. Elijah just laughed and said, maybe he's too soft to notice what he's got. And she said, God help her, she said. He notices. He just thinks noticing is enough. That was the moment I stopped feeling anything for her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. I went home. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, probably pretending to be anywhere else. I sat down across from her, looked her in the eyes, and said, there's a recording. She froze. You don't have to explain anything, I continued. I just need to ask one thing. She stared at me, wide-eyed, already unraveling. When you looked at me the day after it happened, did you feel anything? Anything real? Guilt? Sadness? Or just fear of getting caught? Camille opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. She swallowed hard and looked down at her lap, like maybe the answer was hiding there. I didn't want to hurt you, she said eventually. Wrong answer. Again. I nodded. You should have said, yes, I felt guilt. I still feel it every time you look at me like I'm not who I was. Because I'm not. Because I let someone else hold the part of me that used to be yours. That's what you should have said. She burst into tears. Not sobbing. Not snot and gasping and begging. Just a slow, silent collapse. The kind of crying you do when it's not about the act, it's about the after. About what you've just realized can never be fixed. I stood up, walked toward the stairs. But before I turned the corner, I gave her one last gift. Your lease starts next week, I said. I already spoke to the landlord. Utilities are set up. The key's in your purse. I put it there this morning. She didn't ask how I got the key. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, crying into a shirt she borrowed from my side of the closet. I went to bed alone. Slept like a man who had been carrying a boulder for months and finally let it roll off the cliff. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No confrontation. Just gone. The house was quiet. Peaceful. But not empty. Because something was still in the air. Something I hadn't noticed before. Closure. It's been 6 months since she left. 6 months since the silence in the house became something I could breathe in instead of choke on. I remember waking up the first morning after she was gone and just lying there. Not scrolling. Not moving. Just existing. The sheets were cold on her side, but they didn't feel abandoned. They felt clean. Like something sacred had finally been washed out. For a while, I kept waiting for the anger to come back. I thought maybe it had just gone underground, that it would roar up at the sight of her old coffee mug or a playlist she ruined. But it didn't. Not the way I expected. The grief never turned to rage. It turned to something quieter, something heavier, a kind of mourning not for her, but for the version of myself that stayed for too long. That made excuses. That convinced himself love was supposed to feel like maintenance. I saw Camille once, 2 months after she left. It was at a bookstore of all places. We both reached for the same copy of The Stranger. Ironic. She looked thinner, tired, still beautiful, but in that dimmed way people get when they've spent too long lying to themselves. She smiled, polite. I nodded. We didn't speak. We both understood that nothing needed to be said. The story was over. The curtain had fallen. The lights were back on. And in those lights, I began to rebuild. It didn't happen all at once. Healing never does. Some days I'd wake up and still feel the sting of everything she said in that recording. Some nights I'd stare at the ceiling and remember her laugh. Not the fake one she gave at dinner parties, but the real one she used when she let her guard down. I missed that version of her. The one that maybe only ever existed in my head. But the space she left behind? I didn't fill it with bitterness. I filled it with me. With parts one hadn't made time for in years. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. At first, it was awkward. My lines were stiff, the colors didn't make sense. But then one day I painted something small, something simple, a cracked ceramic bowl on a windowsill, and I realized it was good. Quietly good. Like me. I met someone too. Her name's Nora. She's not a lightning strike or a whirlwind or any of the dramatic metaphors we attach to love. She's warmth. Steady. Kind. She doesn't flinch when I get quiet. She doesn't apologize for being direct. She asks me how I'm doing and listens to the actual answer. I haven't told her everything yet. I will. But not because I need her to fix it. Because I know she won't run from the mess. And I've learned not to be ashamed of it. One night, not long ago, I found the necklace again. The one with the letter E. I almost threw it out. Almost. But instead, I drove out to the lake an hour outside town. The one Camille and I visited once, years ago, before everything soured. I stood on the dock with that necklace in my hand and whispered something I hadn't said before. Thank you for the ending. Then I let it go. Watched it sink beneath the water until there was nothing left but ripples. Not chaos. Not regret. Just the quiet closure of something that was never meant to stay. So yeah, this is how the story ends. Not with a breakdown. Not with revenge. Not even with justice. But with peace. And sometimes, that's the best kind of ending there is.